Hi Booklovers, welcome back to my channel. It's Lacey. I have a couple announcements before I get into my pretty late wrap up for January. First, I turned 24 yesterday, so yay! Second, I have a paperback giveaway of this signed copy going on my Instagram, so I'll link it down below if you want to go enter. And I'm also doing another paperback giveaway for Great and Precious Things by Rebecca Yarros. A signed, I think, but it's a paperback giveaway along with a little Amazon gift card. Also on my Instagram, so be on the lookout for that sometime this week. And if you missed our announcement, I'm co-hosting with two of my best friends, Jessica and Lisa, this historical romance readathon happening in March, mid-March. So if you have time to join us for that week, please do. We've got a fun little bingo challenge going on, but honestly all you have to do is just read historical romances. Now on to my very late wrap up for January 2020. I got through about 30 books, 11 of which were audios on KU, and then a bunch of them were also shorter novellas, which is why I was able to get to so many books. But whatever, I still always count novellas. So let's just get started. The first book that I read, I listened to it in audio, is The Secret to Dating Your Best Friend's Sister by Megan Quinn. This one is a standalone rom-com and it was so much fun to listen to. I love the narrators. Tor Tom, I listened to him before, but I didn't actually like the story in that one. But this one was such a great story. I thought it was adorable, really cute, with a good dose of steam. Obviously, it is the best friend's sister trope. I adored the main characters. We have a hero, Bram, who has had an unrequited crush on his best friend's sister for the longest time. I thought that was so cute, because usually I read it the other way around. But yeah, Bram has had a crush on Julia for a long time, and now he's finally like seeing his chance to finally ask her out and make her fall in love with him. Julia is the owner of this matchmaking company, so Bram pretends that he wants to get matched and set up by Julia's company in order to, you know, grow closer to her and make her see that he's the guy who's totally right for her and has been all along. It was just a really adorable audiobook. If you're looking for something lighthearted and funny, this one is perfect. This next book was the start to my January Lisa Kleypas binge. I started off with It Happened One Autumn. This one is book 2 in the Wallflower series. I had already read Secrets of a Summer Night, the first book in the Wallflowers, prior to this one. I've never read book 2, although I have read book 3, but we'll get back to that. So I finally read Marcus and Lillian's romance, and I freaking adored it. Lillian of the Four Wallflowers is the most headstrong, the most stubborn, and the most wild. She's a wild child. So of course she is paired with her total opposite, Lord Westcliff, Marcus, who is very straight-laced, very traditional. He has a lot of self-control, whereas Lillian does not. But of course, when it comes to Lillian, he doesn't have that much self-control. I really adored their romance. It's like an amazing opposites attract kind of historical romance. Lots of great banter. They love to push each other's buttons. It is a bit of hate to love as well. I just really loved Marcus so much. Oh yeah, the reason why I actually wanted to read this one was because I'd read Again the Magic back in December, and Marcus was the brother of the heroines of that story. He was such an amazing brother. I loved his character in that one, so I figured I might as well read his actual romance. Ended up loving it. We do get to see his two sisters just a little bit in this one. I was kind of hoping I would see McKenna in this one, but he didn't really show up. But whatever, it was an amazing read. I loved it. It is my second favorite of the Wallflowers. Next, I listened to Come As You Are by Lauren Blakely. I always seem to listen to Lauren Blakely's audiobooks rather than actually reading them. She always gets the best narrators, and plus one time she actually got Richard Armitage to narrate one of her romances, and it was like, heaven listening to that book. It is not this book, but I still really liked it. It is book 5 in the One Love series, but all of them can be read as standalones. I actually listened to the other books in audio as well. It was a really good combination of sweet and sexy. I really liked Flynn and Sabrina, the two main characters. They first meet at a masquerade ball, so they don't know each other's identities. Sabrina does not know that Flynn is like a multi-millionaire tech genius, and that Sabrina has been hired to write an article about Flynn. And then of course they meet when Sabrina goes to interview Flynn, but they don't really recognize each other as the person that they had a connection with at the masquerade. It was fun, it was entertaining, they were both really strong characters, and yeah, it was just a really good audiobook. And then I listened to another Lauren Blake audiobook. This one is novella. It's actually a prequel to another book that I already read. I just never read this novella. It is Most Irresistible Guy, which is the prequel to Most Valuable Playboy. I liked the full book, but this prequel was only okay. It was really short, really quick. We have two best friends who have a crush on each other. The hero has been drafted to be a quarterback of some football team, and yeah, it was just very short and sweet. And then I read my second Lisa Kleypas book of the month, Devil in Winter. This one was a reread. I read it like the whole thing again, front to back, which I usually don't do when I reread. I usually just skip to my favorite parts or whatever parts I highlighted. But it was a different experience reading this one for the second time, just because I'd finally read book 2, which kind of has like an overlap with this third book. The hero in this one, Sebastian, kidnaps the heroine from book 2, so he's not exactly like the best of guys when we go into Devil in Winter. He is the playboy, the man whore of the friend group, the guy friend group of the Wallflowers. He has never thought of settling down, but now that his family is basically fallen into debt, Sebastian needs to find a way to get some money, and lo and behold, Evie drops down onto his lap with a marriage of convenience. Evie is trying to get away from her abusive, awful aunt and uncles. The two of them run away to Scotland to get eloped, married. They are very much opposites. Evie is painfully shy and has a stammer. Sebastian is everything a rake is. But during the days that they are forced to be in a carriage on their way to Scotland, they realize that there's more than meets the eye to the both of them, and they slowly start to fall in love with each other. You can see Sebastian getting a little bit jealous over Evie, which he's never felt over a woman. This one is just so good, still my favorite of the Wallflower series. I loved rereading it again. I loved being back with Evie and Sebastian. And then I listened to Dirty Letters by Penelope Ward and Vi Keeland. I normally, for some reason, cannot vibe with Penelope and Vi's books, but I ended up liking this one. It's like a 3.5 for the story, but like overall for the audiobook, I just bumped it up to 4 because I love the narrators. They did an amazing job with bringing the story to life. The premise for this one is really cute. The main characters were pen pals as kids growing up, but they stopped when something traumatic happens to the heroine, and then 8 years later, they're now adults. Luca gets a letter from Griffin randomly out of the blue, and it is a pretty awful letter. So now Luca needs to find a way to get to Griffin to tell him the truth about why she stopped writing. But Luca has some severe anxiety. I think she has agoraphobia. She just like cannot go out in public. And once they hash out everything, tell each other the truth, they do want a relationship with each other. Griffin is totally all in, but Luca's terrified, you know, that she can't be the girlfriend that Griffin deserves with her agoraphobia. It was just really sweet, like borderline sappy. I liked it. It did feel really rushed to me though. Next, I read Whatever It Takes by Kristen Becca Ritchie. This is the first book in the Bad Reputation duet, starring Willow and Garrison finally. It is very much the bad boy, good girl kind of new adult romance. It is told in the past and present timelines. The past where Willow and Garrison first meet when they're like 17, 18, alongside present day UK where they're already in a relationship but doing it long distance, and Willow is off to college in Europe. It was really cute and really sweet, fairly low drama. I've been waiting for Willow and Garrison for years, ever since they were first introduced in the Addicted series, and I'm so happy that we finally get their story, their romance. I still haven't read the second book though. I will get on that soon, hopefully. But I really like this one. It does end on a cliffhanger though, but thankfully both books are already out. I think the authors did a really great job, especially with the present timeline of like the longing and heartache that they're experiencing with their long distance relationship. But I also love the past timeline where Willow and Garrison are both with the core 6 from the Addicted series. I loved being back with them. Like, as much as I do enjoy them being parents in the new series, I totally miss them and the way they were in the original series. Next, I listened to That Forever Girl by Megan Quinn. This one is the second book in the Getting Lucky series, although it can be read as a standalone, as can the other books in the series. There are 4 books in the series, each about a knightly brother. This one is a second chance romance about Rogan. I loved the first book in the series. It was the perfect small town romance, so I was really looking forward to this second book. I sadly did not love it as much as the first one. I only gave it 3 stars. I thought it was okay. I didn't love the narrators either, so that probably affected my listening experience. So again, this one is a second chance romance, my favorite trope, but it didn't really live up to my expectations. I wasn't really a fan of the hero. Like, I understood why he pushed the heroine away, but I kind of expected him to, you know, try to mend things and win her heart back and grovel, but he didn't really do all of that, at least like not enough to me. He was just there and not doing much for the romance. I just really love the small town. It's set up in Maine and it's just really wholesome and sweet, and I love all the like secondary characters. All the brothers are a total riot when they're all together. Sadly, I just didn't love the romance in this one. Next, I read Chasing Cassandra by Lisa Kleypas, of course. The second this book got on my Kindle, had to start reading it. I love this one so much. This is the 6th and last book in the Ravenel series, which is amazing. This one is Cassandra and Tom's story, and I loved it. It is so sweet, so adorable. I love Tom. He's one of my new favorite heroes from Lisa Kleypas. Totally head over heels for his heroine. I love that in a hero. Cassandra is the last of the Ravenels to get her happily ever after. She is the twin sister of Pandora from book 3, Devil in Spring. She's just so sweet and wholesome. The perfect counterpart to Tom Severin. She's all about love and sweetness, and Tom is a very like logical, almost robotic kind of guy. So she brings a lot of life and love into his life. He's filthy rich, but emotion has never been a part of his life. He came from nothing, and now as soon as he meets Cassandra, he wants everything with her. Of course, he doesn't recognize that it's love that he comes to fall in love with Cassandra. He just thinks that he might have a heart problem. But yeah, he's a totally oblivious hero, but he adores Cassandra so much. He just worships the ground that she walks on. The blurb implies that it's a marriage to convenience, but honestly that doesn't really happen until much later in the book. Next is my queen, Penelope Douglas, and her latest book, Credence. I did a reading vlog for this one, so if you haven't watched it, I'll link it down below, including all the spoilers for it. I freaking love this one. It was amazing, incredibly well written, a very non-traditional romance. I mean, it is a reverse harem, but I think Penelope Douglas did a very unique take on it. It is hot as hell. I think it is Penelope's hottest book yet. It is a little bit darker in content than you would expect, especially if you've only read Birthday Girl. This is nothing like that book. I mean, it's dark, it's taboo, it's sexy, it's just It was mind-blowing. I loved it. I could not put this book down when I started it. So after credits, I kind of got into a book slump, and when I do get into slumps, I always go looking for angsty books with a ton of grovel. I read The Greek's Christmas Baby by Lucy Monroe. It's a Harlequin Presents book, and it's full of angst. It's got amnesia and like a surprise baby. The main characters are married, but after a car accident, the hero, the husband, has amnesia and completely has wiped out all memory of his wife. There is a whole bunch of drama with this other woman who works as Aristide's assistant who wants to steal him away from Eden. It's just over the top and angsty. I can't say that I loved it, but I still enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars, maybe 3.5. The hero is a total jackass though, like he's a huge jerk, and I kind of wish that he did just a little bit more groveling. The second angsty book that I read was A Rural Heartbreak by Marianne T. This is actually the second book in the Moretti Werewolf series. I didn't even realize, even when I started reading, it felt like it was a second chance romance, but no, the first book they actually like got together and then broke up at the end. So now in this one, the hero is trying to get back together with the heroine. Honestly, it read totally fine as a standalone. I don't really want to read the first book anyway. This book just gave me exactly what I was looking for, which is a ton of grovel from a hero who wants the heroine back. The grovel was really good in this one, but I just didn't care for anything else. There's like this whole politics going on between the different species, paranormal species, vampires, werewolves, whatever. I literally did not care. But for a second chance romance and for a groveling book, it was pretty good. The third and last of my angsty reads is Love Me Still by Maya Banks. This one is novella, also another paranormal romance. It is a ménage book with a heroine and her 2 mates. Their father dies, their alpha dies, and for some reason they get the impression that the heroine was at fault and was basically the one that killed him. She was not. It is angsty as hell when they realize that they fucked up, that she did not have anything to do with their father's death, and now they are begging her to come back. A ton of grovel, surprisingly fairly low in steam. So for a grovel book, it was great. I really enjoyed it. Sometimes I just want to go straight into the whole begging forgiveness thing, and this whole novella was that. And then I listened to the Dangerous Beauty trilogy by J.T. Geisinger. The trilogy is romantic suspense, and the heroine is on the run from her ex, who is a mafia boss. The ex hires the hero, Nasir, to track her and bring her back. But of course, once he starts trailing her and actually like meeting her, he starts to fall in love with her and realize that her ex is not exactly the best of men. It's a trilogy, so all 3 books go back to back. I really enjoyed all 3 books in the series. The first book is probably the most lighthearted of all 3. They get a lot more serious towards the next 2 books, but I like the romance. I enjoyed Eva and Nasir. Their narrators were really good as well. It was just a really entertaining trilogy, and I got very invested in these 2 characters and their story. And then I read Jessica Cain's My Outlaw Valentine. This one is of course a smutty novella. It's friends to lovers. The main characters are roommates as well, and they're both in love with each other. The hero is a detective and he is completely obsessed with her. Obviously it's over the top, but I still really enjoy this one. I thought it was so funny in the beginning how it started off really cute, but as soon as the heroine left to go to work, it turned ridiculous. He starts sniffing and jacking off to where she sat, but it's just so entertaining and no shame. I just love Jessica Cain. And then my last Lisa Kleypas book of the month, Scandal in Spring, the last book in the Wallflower series. Obviously, when I read books 2 and 3, I had to finish up the series and read this one. Scandal in Spring is Daisy's book, the last of the Wallflowers. She's actually the younger sister of Lillian from book 2. This book was was so sweet. Another opposites attract kind of romance. Daisy is the bookworm. She has dreams of marrying for love and a dream man, and Matthew is not it. She sees Matthew as cold and unemotional as her father is. Matthew actually works for her father and they've known each other for like a decade, but it's also been a decade since they've seen each other. So when Matthew comes to England, they're originally from America, and Daisy sees him for the first time and realizes that he's had a glow up. Matthew on his part has always had a crush on Daisy. When Daisy is forced by her father to find a potential husband and get married, Matthew actually tries to help her find a suitor but ends up obviously getting jealous. It's just a really sweet and cute romance, the perfect ending to this amazing series. I love Daisy and Matthew so much. They have amazing chemistry together, and I loved how adoring Matthew is with Daisy. Next, I read Not Your Shoe Size by Abe Dangerfield, which is a sequel novella to one of my favorite books, Act Your Age. So this novella is a direct sequel to Act Your Age, so you need to read Act Your Age beforehand. It's been 5 years since they're happily ever after, and they're settled down, but Kate is getting a little antsy. She's feeling restless and kind of wants to make a big change, like move to Paris for a job. And Ty is about to hit 50 with a much younger girlfriend, but he's very happy with his life. There's just a lot of big decisions to be made, but the one thing that is still going strong is Kate and Ty's love for each other, and of course their very sexy kink in the bedroom. If you haven't read Act Your Age, you should. It's a wonderful age gap romance, grumpy hero, daddy kink. This one is actually the author's very last book, at least for the time being, which is a little devastating. I love Eve Dangerfield. She is a really great erotic romance author, but if and whenever she comes back, I will definitely be reading her again. And then I listened to Kaleidoscope by Kristen Ashley. Listened to it in audio, even though I already own the paperback. I just handle her books these days way better in audio because I just don't have the patience to read her stories anymore because they are so wordy and so detailed. This is book 6 in the Colorado Mountain series. I have read all but book 5. The main characters were friends, but Deck was actually dating Emmy's best friend back then, but now 9 years later, Emmy is back in Deck's life, and Deck realizes that he dated the wrong woman all along. I sadly did not love this one. It was only okay for me. I never really felt the romance between Deck and Emmy. Never really loved their characters either. I mean, Deck is your typical alpha KA hero. I wish I liked him more, but it just didn't work for me. These and next few books I read for the Lunar New Year readathon, where we read Asian romances and or Asian authors. I won't go too much in depth for them just because I did that for my vlog, but I started off with Trade Me by Courtney Milan. This is the first book in the Cyclone series, and I liked it. It's like a 3.5 to me, like almost 4, but not quite. I love the premise for it, like a poor college student switching lives with a rich college student, but it just took me a really long time to feel their romance. It's quite the slow burn, but I really enjoy Courtney Milan's writing. I just wish she wrote epilogues because these books do not have any. They end very abruptly. Then again, at least for this couple, Courtney Milan did write like sequels and sequel novellas for them, but I liked it overall. It's very different than your typical new adult college romance, and I appreciated it. But then I read the second book, Hold Me, which is about Tina's best friend Maria, and I freaking loved it. Definitely my favorite of all the books that I read for Lunar New Year readathon. It's almost close to a 5 stars. I gave it 4.5, but again, it ended so abruptly. I just need something, like, not necessarily an epilogue, I just needed a little bit more, but other than that, I loved this book. I loved Jay and Maria's enemies to lovers romance. They were a really great couple, lots of banter, lots of chemistry. Maria is a trans woman and she's a writer for this really popular blog. Jay is her unknown fan of her blog, and they've been texting each other anonymously for years. So while they have a really good friendship, friendship and may even crush on each other online. In real life, they kind of hate each other, mainly because Jay is such a huge jerk when he meets Maria. Maria is kick-ass. I love her so much. Jay took me a long time to warm up to, but once he starts working on himself and working on his relationship with Maria, so much easier to like him. I loved it, but again, abrupt endings are not my favorite. Next, I read Temporary Wife Temptation by J.C. Lee. I really enjoyed this one. This is the first in the Heirs of Hansel series. We have Garrett and Natalie in a marriage of convenience. It's really quick, short, hot. I love the chemistry between these two. Natalie is an awesome heroine and I loved how alpha Garrett was. I just love the main characters. I wish we had a little bit more time with them so everything was fleshed out a bit more, and they were a lot of fun to read about. Next, I read A Fake Girlfriend for Chinese New Year by Jackie Lau. This was my first book from this author and I liked it, but I didn't love it as much as I was hoping I would. It was okay. I think the writing is just not really my style, but the story itself is very sweet and wholesome, low drama. It's a fake relationship, friends to lovers romance. It's a fairly short book too, so it's really fast and quick. And then I read Bad for the Boss by Talia Hibbert. This is the first book in the Just for Him series, but can totally be read as a standalone. I was really intrigued by this one because I love Talia Hibbert and her writing. I love Age Gap and I love office romances. This one just really worked for me. I loved Theo and Jen. Their romance is sexy as hell. It's a bit of a forbidden romance too, with Theo being Jen's employer, the boss at her company. But I really enjoyed it. I loved how Theo was totally adoring of Jen, but of course was very careful not to mess things up for her at work. It was quick, it was hot, and now I really need to read the rest of the series. Next, I binge read some of Mink's books, who is a fairly new smutty novella author like Ella Good and Jessica Kane, so I thought I'd give her books a try. I started off with Hitman's Prey. This one I actually didn't like all that much. I had such a hard time getting into it. Wasn't a fan of the main characters. Premise is interesting, but I don't know, it just didn't work for me. The main characters are neighbors and they kind of spy on each other. The hero is actually like a killer for hire, an assassin, but even that, like, it just wasn't all that interesting to me, so I just gave it 2 stars. Next, I read His Deadly Darling by Mink, and I'm so glad I kept reading it because this one I really loved. The hero is of course alpha and totally in love with the heroine. He is part of the mob, I think, and buys the heroine from her parents who have kept her under lock and key for years, and all Luke wants to do is set Cassandra free from her parents. I adored this one. I thought it was hilarious how much Cassandra wanted to kill Luke and threaten him to off him while he was sleeping, and all Luke did was give her her dream life, her dream house, based off of her Pinterest account. Like everything that she would pin onto her Pinterest account, he would try to like buy or make. I thought that was so funny, but also very smart on Luke's part. This one is still my favorite from this author. The other ones haven't quite worked as well, like His Virgin Queen, which I read next. This one was only okay, not bad, not all that great. It's got another heroine who is sold by her parents, but on her wedding day, the hero shoots the husband and marries her for himself. So this one has some mafia going on as well. Next, I read Cruel Prince by Ashley Jade, I think, and it's probably my least favorite book of the month. I hated it. I gave it 1 star. It just didn't work for me. Bully romances I'm very picky about. Most of the time I don't enjoy them. I just need like a good valid reason for the bullying, and this one was totally pathetic. I didn't buy the reason, the excuse. Didn't really make any sense either when it came out. It's your typical high school bully romance, and I was intrigued by it because it's like compared to Vicious, I guess, but even though I didn't love Vicious, I still liked it more than Cruel Prince. It started off really great too. Like the main characters have known each other since they were kids and were best friends. But then of course something happens and now the hero, Jace, is completely awful to the heroine, who has finally returned to their town after being away for a couple years, and makes her high school life, the remainder of her high school life living hell. Dylan for a heroine was okay. I did like that she actually stood up for herself and would literally fight the people who would bully her and punch them in the face. But after a while, it got a little tiring because that's all she ever did. When everything came out, I just didn't buy that excuse, mainly because the heroine had nothing to do with like the reason why he turned to hate her. So there really was no reason for him to bully her. He even says himself towards the end that he knew all along that she was not at fault, and yet he still bullied her and treated her like shit. I didn't like the ending at all. There is like zero groveling from the hero. After all that he put Dylan through, he didn't say sorry at all, or like he said it once and she took him back like that. It was so pathetic. I did not like that there was no grovel. Like, if you're gonna do all this nasty stuff, at least try to make up for it. But none of that happened. So I'm not even gonna try to read the second book because I didn't like the main character in this first book. He's one of the brothers and he's like the biggest hoe ever. So yeah, this book, not for me. And then I listened to The Spitfire by Christy Caldwell. I listened to it in audio and I really enjoyed it. This is a historical romance, book 5 in the Wicked Wallflower series, a series that I have not read or listened to. I just jumped into this one, but it came highly recommended, so I figured why not? This one just sounded so good. The heroine is a former courtesan and madam, aka a prostitute, but she's left that life and is trying to create a new life for herself as an owner of a music hall, which is her passion. She ends up finding the hero one night when he's badly injured and saves him and nurses him back to health. He returns back to his Earl life but can't stop thinking about Clara. Unfortunately, they reunite when Clara barges into his life, into his home, to yell at him for trying to shut down her establishment. He didn't realize it was her establishment when he like sent the papers out. Henry has a lot of growing up and learning to do despite being like in his 40s. I think Clara's in her 30s, but he's lived a very cushioned life as an Earl, and Clara shows him the other side of the lower classes. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a really unique historical romance. I loved that the hero is actually a virgin. I just love finding virgin heroes. Clara herself is really awesome, a really great, strong heroine. And now that I've read this final book in the series, I should probably read the rest of them. And then last, I listened to Dirty Exes by Rachel Van Dyken. This one is a second chance romance, and we've got a heroine who is a co-owner of a PI firm who goes undercover to find cheating significant others. This latest client makes her come across her ex, the ex-love of her life, Jesse, who left her and instead pursued an NFL career. Like, he could have taken her with him, but he chose not to and instead dumped her. So she's never gotten over that, and I don't really think that he actually made up for that all that much. Kind of wish Jesse felt a little bit more sorry about that, but honestly, I wasn't really a fan of the romance. I didn't feel the connection between them. There's a bit of a love triangle going on with Jesse's best friend, who ends up being the hero in the second book. So I wasn't all that impressed with this one. I kind of wanted to also listen to the second book, but I made it like 10-20 minutes in before I stopped because I just wasn't feeling it either. So that's it. Those are all the books that I read back in January. Let me know if you've read any of these. I'll link everything down in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!